Best Hashem Yisborach, we begin Perek Asiri, the 10th chapter in the Rambam Hilchos Shvuos and the laws of oaths in the Sefer Law, which we continue the theme of the previous parak regarding Shvuos Edus, the liability that if witnesses swear falsely that they don't have testimony when they really do have. In this parak, the Rambam discussed regarding an oath that wouldn't obligate monetary payment even if they would say their testimony, and thus regarding their exemption from swearing falsely. As the Rambam begins Halacha Alf regarding witnesses that are not permitted to say testimony. Let's say his witnesses, or even one of them, which that would already tear apart the testimony, which needs two witnesses. If one of them or both of them were invalid to testify, for example, a thief who was biblically prohibited to say testimony, a karv or a relative which is also invalid for witnesses, and even it's only rabbinic invalidations where he violated a sin which is only rabbinically a problem. Or let's say one of his witnesses was a king, where the king's not permitted to say testimony. In general, that's halacha, a king cannot. Or let's say it was only second-hand testimony, where the witnesses heard from another witness. And regarding any one of these cases, we just described B'kafra b'nishbu, and they deny knowing any testimony, and they swear to that effect. And then it turns out they admit that they really did know testimony. Petur Mishvuos Edus, they're exempt from the liability of swearing falsely regarding not knowing testimony. And the reason is She'ilu, if the gear says Haidu, Heidu, even if they would admit and they would say testimony initially, and they wouldn't obligate with their testimony monies at all, because as we said, they're either puzzle or karav, whatever it is, or a king who cannot testify anyway. And the Torah says them lo yagid v'nasa avaynai, meaning in a situation where you could be yagid and your testimony would have significant relevance, and you're not, then that denial will make you liable. But here, where you can't say testimony anyways to obligate the monies, therefore they're not liable for the halacha of Shvuos Edus. Halacha Beis, similarly here the Ram discussed regarding other testimonies which would not obligate, although they are valid testimony, would not obligate monies, which is another prerequisite. Mashbi'ani aleichem. Let's say the claimant says to the witnesses that I'm taking an oath on you, you should come and testify for me, that guy had said, that he's going to give me 200 zuz. You guys overheard, he said he's promised me he's going to give me, but he didn't give. For kafir, the witnesses deny, we don't know anything of this, and then it turns out that they were lying. They're exempt from the Shvuos Edus. Why? Because even had they testified that, we overheard this guy telling him that he's going to give him 200 zuz, the defendant would not have been obligated to give monies regarding the words that they had said, because he could have said, I changed my mind, whatever it is, but the fact that he had said that he's going to give doesn't obligate him. And is there anything like this where, even though they would testify, would not bring to a monetary obligation, would not, by their denial and swearing to that effect, make them chayiv for the Shvuos Edus. Similarly, halacha gimel, tvom lahoyed loishu kohen or levi. Let's say he's claiming them to testify that you guys know that I'm a kohen or a levi, or she'ena ben grusha ben chalutza, or that he's a kohen but he's not the son of a divorcee, or that of the son who had married a chalutza, which would make him into chol. I want you guys to swear, you guys know this. To testify. And they deny knowing, we don't know, and they swear to that effect. Here also, they're exempt from the Shvuos Edus. Although here there could have been a valid testimony, which is important in the court of law to know if it's a kohen or not, but it's not regarding monetary law, and this whole halacha of lo yagid is regarding monetary obligations. Halacha dalet. Now, even a bigger chiddush, as we keep on growing, either they're not witnesses, or even if they're witnesses but not regarding monetary law, here we're going to say that they are witnesses and it's regarding monetary law, but still it's not going to bring to a monetary payment, and hence no obligation for Shvuos Edus. Because Tavaim She'idulai, let's say he's claiming that they should testify for him, Shechava B'ay B'nai, his son injured him, and his son, who's a separate person, is obligated to pay for those damages. Or for Shidlik Plain Gedisha B'Shabbos. Or let's say he wants them to testify that guy lit up his granary on Shabbos to pay for all the damages that he had. Or v'sha'anas plaini apita bita hamarasa, or that person raped or seduced his daughter that was engaged to be liable for the damages that he imposed on her. V'kafru b'nishbu, and they deny and they swear to that effect. Petur Mishvuos Edus, they're exempt from Shvuos Edus. Why? Shemeidu Edus, because if they had they testified this testimony, yischayv hanitva Mrs. Bezdin, the one that is the defendant, he actually would have been liable for corporal punishment. Chil Shabbos, or regarding Kaznai Marasam, or whatever the situation was, the case that we described, he's actually liable for a death penalty. and therefore he's not obligated in monetary payments. Hilchos Naira, like explained in the halachas of Naira and Perek Al Halacha Yud, where the halacha is we give him the greater punishment, and therefore it's not going to bring to a monetary payment. Was anything that's similar to this, where even if it is a testimony and that of monetary relevance, but it's not going to actually bring to a monetary payment, will not make the witnesses liable if they swear falsely for the Shvuos Eidos. Halacha Hey, Hayed Echad v'Kafa v'Ishbir. Let's say it was demanding of a singular witness, and that person denied and he swore to that effect. Here also, even if it was regarding a regular monetary claim, it'd be exempt from the obligations of Shvuos Eidos. Because the testimony of one witness never obligates monies. All it does is obligate that of an oath. Now, although it could cause a monetary payment, where if, let's say, the defendant doesn't want to swear, he's going to have to pay, but that's only considered at the most a davar grim lamamin, and because as Rambam is going to shortly say, that it's possible that he will swear and he won't pay. So because of that, that's not as if he would have obligated a monetary payment by his testimony, and therefore, if he denies and he swears falsely, not mechayv Shvuos Eidos. Halacha Vav. Let's say he petitions from his two witnesses to testify of him that his wife was mazana, that she went and she had an adulterous relationship. And they deny and they swear to that effect, and it turns out they were lying. Here they're going to be obligated in the Shvuos Eidos. And the reason for that is, had they testified, so they would have caused her a loss in her dowry, in her ksuba, because the halacha is that if she's mezana, she doesn't deserve her ksuba. And the and the one who's claiming from them would have been exempt because he doesn't have to give it to her. Now recover at this moment. Therefore, they're denying regarding monetary testimony, and because of that, they are chayiv b'shvuos eidos. And even though that the woman would be chayiv misa, and one should say kim l'rabbanei regarding this nuz, but that's not something that you don't say kim l'rabbanei, but that's not making her obligated anything. It's not like, oh, there's this payment and there's this death penalty. She's not paying anything. It's just what she shouldn't get. And the husband would not have to give it, even though she's getting death penalty. And therefore, by not testifying and swearing to that effect, they are causing a monetary loss, and hence they would be chayav in this case regarding the Shvuos Eidos. Halacha Zayin, Tava Edei Kinui, related to his wife being mezana, the halachas of a saita. If, let's say, he petitions from the witnesses who were there when he had warned his wife, don't seclude with that man. Or Edei Stira, or which is phase 2, or the witnesses that had saw that she secluded herself with that man that he had warned her not to seclude with, and v'kafav and nishbu, if either one of these witnesses deny and they swear falsely, but two mishvus eidos, because she'ilu hidu, even had they testified, yeah, we were there when he had warned, or we were there when she secluded, there's no monetary liability over here. The only thing Kin Nistir brings is to make her drink, to cite the waters, to inspect her, to see if she's mizana or not. Now, the Avab, and this is what we had alluded to before in the previous halacha. The Avab pisha eduzu geremis law shetaf ksubas. Although this testimony could cause her to lose her ksuba, im loitishta, if she's not going to drink. So wait, it is a monetary testimony that they're not saying and swearing to that effect. No, davar shagam lamaman income, something that will only be a causation for a monetary loss is not considered like monies, and the reason for that is because it's not a direct cause, it's not even definite. It's possible that she will drink the waters, yeah, had they testified that she was secluded and that she was found to be secluded, meaning the warning and the seclusion, and turns out if she will drink, then that she was tar. And it's not going to cause her to lose and break her ksuba. So because that is not definite, it's not direct, therefore it's not considered as a testimony regarding Eid Shabbaman. Halacha Ches, the Rambam continues regarding when there could be a situation that even though it's Eid Echad, he will be able to obligate monies, and therefore if he swears to that effect and in denial, actually would be chayav for Shvuos Eidos. As Rambam says, Harisha Kina Le'ishtoi, continuing on the theme of the previous halacha, if someone warned to his wife, V'nistra be'edim, and she was secluded with witnesses, V'zanza be'ed echad achar kina bastira, and then she was mezana in front of one witness, after we already verified that she was warned, and after we verified that she had secluded. So the husband makes an oath on that witness to come and testify. He's the final third stage of the link of making his wife forbidden to him, the kafir, and he denies knowing anything. Chai b'shvuas eidus, he's liable for shvuas eidus, because Avi b'shvuas eidus, even though he's a singular witness, ilu heid eidusu, had he testified this testimony, as we said in the prior halacha above, she would have to leave it out of ksuba, like we explained in Hilchos because since here, although generally one witness is not valid, but specifically in the halachas of Saita, the pasuk tells us ve'eid ein ba behila nitfasa. If you have kinoi and stira with valid witnesses, this reglaim ladavid is already indicating factors that she probably was mezana, and therefore we believe this one witness who says she was metame, and therefore by not saying it, he's causing a loss to the husband regarding that he has to still pay the ksuba, and therefore he would be chayv b'shvuas eidus. Halacha tes v'chein kol eid echad shemechayiv mamon beidusis. So to any time that you could have a possibility of a singular witness who would obligate money with his testimony, if he denies and he swears to that effect, or the courts made him swear and he denies, there also is going to be liability for Shvuos. Which Ram Halacha Yid continues the case. How so? I thought only two witnesses could obligate monies, and only a single witness could only obligate oath. So this is going, for example, if both the claimant and the defendant were chashudin ala shvuah, both were suspect regarding oath. We don't trust either one of them to swear truthfully. With halacha sheimash b'inais, that we don't have them take the oaths. Now, now the case was both parties, we don't let them swear. Now this claimant made the singular witness to swear to testify that guy has 100 dinarim of his. And he denies, although he really knows that he owes the monies. In this case, that eid echad would be chayav for shvuas eidus. Why? Because she'ilu heyud, had that one witness testified, the halacha would be, you're right, not a monetary obligation. Although it obligates only testimony, what happens is that actually the defendant would ultimately, in a direct way, have to pay monies with that one witness's testimony. Like we explain where the Rambam explains over there that the Takan Zecham was that whoever's obligated in a Shvuah, if he's suspect, so what we do is we have the claimant rabbinically swear, and he's what's called nishba b'naitel, he swears and he takes. The problem is if both are suspect, then the Shvuah goes back to its rightful place, which is the defendant. But what's called mitich she'en yachal yishav misham, since he can't swear, he has to pay. So it's a direct thing. Both are suspect. So if you know that if you would testify, it would cause a monetary obligation. Not like, it's garim l'mamin, we're not sure, maybe the person would swear or whatever, it might not come. Here we know for sure, because the halacha is that both can't swear. And is anything that's similar to this, where even though it's one witness, if you know it would cause a monetary obligation, and he doesn't, and he swears falsely, he's chayav for shvuas eidus. Halacha yidalf, ha'isha sheshbiya eid echad, sheyod lo b'mitzvahs bala. Continue on regarding a singular witness. If a woman makes a singular witness swear that to testify that her husband died, but Kavani denies it, he also chayav shvuas eidus. He's going to be chayav shvuas eidus. Why? It's only eid echad. Because She'ilu Hayid had he testified, he said Nisis, she would be able to get married, which that was Mishum Migunik Akila B'Rabbanan, a woman's allowed to get married based on the single witness. Now, because she gets married, the halacha is when it tells Ksubasa, she takes the Ksuba from her husband's inheritors, because the halacha is, and this is inherent in the wording of the Ksuba, that if she could get remarried, she also collects the Ksuba. So therefore, by him denying this, he's denying her monetary gains, and hence it's considered valid for the obligations of the Shvuas Eidus. Now, when do we say this, that if the witness denies knowing regarding the husband's death, that he caused a loss to the woman's ksuba, and therefore his chayv shvuas eidus, is only if the woman would have been able to collect her ksuba, her dowry, from movable items. Now, that would be specifically in the case where what's called tafsa, where she already had grabbed the movable items when her husband was still alive, and she was holding on to them. Now, had he testified for her, she would have been allowed to hold on to her that payments for her ksuba, because if she had not taken the movable items when the husband was still alive, the movable items is that by the Yisayim are not, there's no lien on it for the ksuba, according to basic Talmudic law, and therefore grabbing it wouldn't be effective. But again, if she'd be able to collect it because she really was holding on to these metalman, that's where we said that it would cause her a loss of not being able to hold on to it for a ksuba, because he didn't testify that the husband died. But as in a normal case, but let's say the only thing she collects from is from real estate, which that there is a lien on from her ksuba. And actually, the eid echad would be exempt from the shvuas eidus, because the shvuas eidus does not apply by testimony regarding karka, regarding real estate. And mechenim hoyishnayim, so too, even if there was two witnesses. And the reason is shemesh bi edei karka b'turim, because if someone makes an oath on witnesses regarding real estate, those witnesses are exempt. Kabishran, like we explained in Parak Tes Halacha Gimel, that the halacha does not apply. The Torah tells us there's no obligation in regarding edei shebekarka. Halacha Gimel Rambam continues regarding testimonies that are not integral, and hence also doesn't have this obligation. Hishbiya Eidav Bevezin. Let's say he made his witnesses swear in the court. Now, B'kafar Shneim Ka'achas. And both of them denied at the same time. Could go in, for example, what does it mean the same time? Shehiskal Hasheni Lichvar, the second one started denying, but within the amount of time that a few seconds of Shalom Alecha Rabbi, the amount of time it takes to person to finish his speech, that the other person already started denying. So Shneim Chayav Mishvuz Eidus, both of them are liable for Shvuos Eidus, because both of them are at the same time the two witnesses, which could have been obligated monies, and they're denying it. And therefore, therefore each and every witness has to bring his karban chatzos, which is a karban eila b'yared, as we said in Perek Av Yud Beis, which is this liability regarding Shvuos Eidus. But let's say kafa region, let's say the first witness, he first denies. And the second witness waited those few seconds, those few moments that it takes to say the phrase Shalom Alecha Rabbi. He delays, and only let's say a minute later he goes and he denies. He says, "Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know." Then only the first witness will be liable for the Shvuos Eidus. The second one's going to be exempt from Shvuos Eidus, and the reason for that is because even had the second witness admitted now at this point, his testimony would not have obligated monies, because right now at this point he's a singular witness, and a single witness cannot obligate money, because that other witness already a minute ago or 30 seconds ago, whatever, he already denied knowing, so he's out of the picture. It's just me. So even if I admitted, I still would not have obligated monies, and if I deny, also it's not going to be chayiv for the Shvuos Eidus. Now, let's say hoide echad b'kafar echad. Let's say one admitted and one denied. So hakoyfer chayiv. So the one who's denying is going to be chayiv. Ben shekafar b'tchila, ben shekafar b'sev, whether he's denying first or he's denying last, because the one who is admitting is ready there to testify. If he wouldn't have denied, together they would have been able to obligate monies. Now, kafar shneim ke'echad. Let's say they both deny at the same time, which we said, okay, they're both going to be chayiv. But then one of them went, and within the time frame where he didn't finish his statement, those few seconds which are still connected to your prior statement, one of them went and he admitted. He says, "No, it's not true. I really do know testimony." So he's a pater. He's exempt because he was able to still back out. He didn't finish his paragraph. And the one who maintains his denial, he'll be chayav Shvuos Eidus, because again, if he would have admitted together with the other one, then they would have together been able to obligate the monetary obligation, and by denying, he's chayav Shvuos Eidus. And Halacha Tezvav, the Rambam continues with a similar theme regarding if it's not integral on you, so then that's not going to make you obligated in your Shvuos Eidus. As Rambam says, Hishbiya shtei kiti edim. If let's say he actually takes an oath to require them to say testimony on two different pairs of witnesses, 4 people, 2 and 2. And both groups of witnesses actually fit to say testimony. Now, the first group of witnesses, they deny that they know anything, even though they really do know. And then the second group of witnesses, they deny. So the first group of witnesses are actually exempt from Shvuos Eidus. Why? Because they're relying on the second group of witnesses. Meaning, the claimant could still extract his money from that other person with the testimony of the second group of witnesses. So the nimsa comes out, this defendant, it's not only this set of witnesses that would be the only medium for the claimant to be able to collect his money from that defendant, and because of that, as the Rambam explained in the first halach of the previous parak, that would not obligate the Shvuos Eidus. The Shvuos Eidus is when you're the only medium for this guy to get his money. And because you're not testifying, he's losing. It's not true. Here, even if they don't say the truth, he can still get with the second pair of witnesses, hence the first group is exempt. Now, in contrast to the second pair, where they're the only pair left. Now, says the Rambam, let's say the second group of witnesses, they were relatives either to the claimant or the defendant through marriage, meaning with their wives. Their wives were sisters. Now, but the wives are in the throes of death. So, but still says the Rambam, in that situation, In this situation, also the first group of witnesses would be obligated in the Shvuos Eidus. Why? Because ultimately, in this case, the second group of witnesses, when the first group was denying, they were not fit to say testimony. Meaning, the Rambam is saying a chiddush, meaning he's saying that generally, when you have two sets of witnesses, the first group is exempt because he could get with the second pair. But now he's saying, but let's say the second pair actually was not valid to say testimony, even though, as the Rambam says, even though shortly the second pair of witnesses will be fit to say testimony, when their wives who make them related through marriage, when they're in the throes of death, they're literally about to die. When they're going to die, they're not going to be related, and then they would be able to say testimony. Still, right now they can't. So the first pair of witnesses, right now, their denial is voiding his ability to get money, and therefore the first pair of witnesses will be chayv shvuos eidus. Now, if the second group of witnesses, if they deny after their wives passed away, then chayav shvuos eidus, then they will be liable for shvuos eidus, which obviously we're talking about where when they saw the testimony, they were, let's say, single, not married yet. So then when you start off the testimony, which is when you saw it, and the end, when you're saying it, are all valid. So even though in the middle sometime they were married, that would still be a valid testimony, and then by their denial they would be chayiv. So there was a few parts in this halacha. When there's two pairs, the first one's exempt, but if let's say the second one's not valid because they're related, then the first one is obligated. But then when the second one's relatives die and then they are valid, then they also could be chayiv because then they're only ones left to then also their denial by voiding his ability to get the monies, and thus chayiv b'shvuos eidus. Halacha design, the Rambam continues regarding the oaths that could retroactively in some way be obligations. If let's say someone claims for witnesses to testify for him, the kafir they deny it. Vishbim makes them swear. And they say, yes, we're accepting that oath. Vishbim and they swear 4 or 5 times. And they answer yes, yes, yes for all the oaths after everyone that was said on them out of the court. Now, but when they finally come to court, guess what? They admit and they say testimony. They're exempt for Shvuos Eidus. This comes around like we explained in Perek Tes Halacha Beis, where we said that the denial has to be in court. Like it says, there has to be a place where if you wanted, you could be yagid, which is only in court. Since here all the denial, all the shvuos were and the denials were out of court, so it has no relevancy. Now, let's say they come to court and they maintain their denial, then they're actually going to be liable for each and every oath that they took out of the court because the denial is focused towards the oaths that they already taken. So the denial has to be in court, and that's in court. And the oaths, each one now is being strengthened by that denial. He's chayv for each and every one of those shvuos of the shvuos eidus. Now, when we say this, that if he makes them swear out of the court, they could be chayiv a carbon for each and every one, as long as there's a denial in court, is b'shanu amen. If they answered the word amen, when he says, and you're going to swear that, and they say amen, amen. But if they didn't answer amen, rather they just denied at every single oath. They said, we don't know any testimony, we don't know, but they never accepted the actual oath. So since they themselves did not enunciate an oath, neither did they answer amen, which is an acceptance of the oath, they're going to be exempt from the Shvuos Eidus until they make them swear in the courts, and then they deny over there. Like we explained in Perek Tes Halacha Aleph and Halacha Yud. Halacha Yud Ches, Hishbim Bevezden. Let's say they made them take an oath in the courts. When they deny that they know testimony. And then they continue to make them take an oath 4 or 5 times. And they deny each and every one. So whether this is out of the court or in the court, even if they said amen. Even if they're saying the oath, I swear, and they kept on saying, time after time. In contrast to the case before, which that's the unique thing about that case, if you're doing it out of the court, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you come in with your one denial, it thus activates all those shvuos, you can be chayiv 5. In contrast, here in this case, if you're swearing in the court, on his own initiative, only going to be liable for one liability of shvuos eidus. Why? Shouldn't he be more severe in the court itself and he's saying it by himself? No, but for a simple reason. Because once he denied in court knowing testimony, and these are witnesses testifying, we don't know testimony, If they would subsequently go ahead and admit, which is the whole purpose of making more obligations, because you could still admit, and each one is a denial. But in this case, if they admit in the court, their subsequent testimony, even if they want to admit, would not be effective at all. Because what's called kimet shehegut shubein l'chayzim agid. Once they already testified that we don't know testimony, they can't go back. And then we say testimony, so the denial is not a removal of an ability to claim money, because they wouldn't be able to go ahead and testify for the guy to get his money anyway. So halachah test nimtzis lamed comes out that you learn shekol shvuos shenishbu acha shekav bebezdin. Any oath that he's swearing after already made a denial in the courts of knowing any testimony, so that's a denial of testimony which would not obligate money anyway, like we said, because even if he would testify, it wouldn't be accepted. So obviously they're exempt from Shvuos Eidus, which is only if you can pay money and they can't. But they're still going to be liable for an oath of utterances because they're swearing falsely. Like we explained in Perek Tes, Halach Yadalt.